finally had a little bit better weather so that we were able to do some grass cutting. Over the last few weeks, we haven't had the chance to get down to the creek field since it's been wet, and going down the hill from the hayfield to the creek is a bit treacherous when it's wet, especially taking the tractor down a 20-degree slope. It took a little bit of extra time to mow since I don't like mowing at this time of the year, since the fawns have just been born, and a lot of times they'll be laying in the grass by themselves. They will not move unless you get right on them, and sometimes they don't even move at that time. So we went fairly slow just to make sure that we didn't run over any fawns, but we were watching very carefully. It took a while to do things. I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video for the sake of time so that you can see how we ended up cutting the creek field. At this point, you can actually see how tall the grass has gotten. Most of it is the grasses with a bunch of clover at the base, but we have a few areas that we have some thistles which have gotten a little bit higher. These have actually grown up quite rapidly in the last couple weeks. A few weeks ago, they were only about a foot off the ground, and now they're up to 3 and 4 feet in height. And at other areas on the farm, they're up over 6 foot in height. Finished up the creek field, and that is a little bit less than half of an acre in grass that we cut, and we're going to go ahead and move on over across the creek and head up towards the easement and make a path to the platform blind fields. Although we haven't had a chance to mow this year going up towards the easement and the power lines, we have worn a little bit of a path going through a patch of raspberries, and we're going to be mowing through without taking a lot of the raspberries because it's very convenient along this trail to stop and pick the raspberries once they're ripe in about another month or so. As we get up to the power lines, we'll start heading due east, and it's about another 150 yards until we can turn off to the north to get to the food plots in what we call the platform area. This area actually has quite a bit of a slope, and as you can see on the GoPro, it tried to make a horizon, but that's a little bit tilted, and it kind of offsets the actual slope from right to left. We actually had to go a little bit slower on this, just as the area has a few little holes in it, and we didn't want to go ahead and do the rollover maneuver. We made a left turn heading towards what we call the South Platform Field. This lies due south of where our blind is, and this area is a fairly wide area, but has a nice little pinch point from the pond to the fields that are to the south of us. You can see the windmill right in front of us. As we go past it, you might notice that the blades are kind of torn up, since some idiot, when he put it together, put the blades on backwards, so it hits the windmill stand and has battered them up pretty much over the last few years. It still does function and continues to aerate the pond, which is just to the right side. You may have noticed also in the little bit before this that same idiot got a little bit too close to the trees to the right side, and it managed to alter the GoPro so we got a nice view of the sky momentarily. Heading north from the blind, we're coming up on a patch of thistles which has grown tremendously over the last 2 weeks. About 2 weeks ago, it was about 1 foot high, and now they're a little over 6 foot high. Zipping along, we finished up mowing the majority of the food plot and the platform fields to the north and the south of the blind. All in all, we mowed a little over 2¼ acres just in this area before we started to head west to make a little bit wider corridor along the power line easement. It took several passes going from west to east and east to west before we could gradually gain some width on the corridor along the power lines, and also the little trail area going into the woods just south of the creek. We had to take down actually quite a few small saplings and wanted to hit as much of the small locust trees that had just started growing along the way. And we also wanted to preserve some of the patches of the raspberries so that we'll have a little bit to pick in the next month or so. Slowing the video down to normal speed. Before it had been at 8 times the speed and 4 times the speed just immediately before now. This is just to emphasize a little bit about how the GoPro can shift the horizon and mismatch the angles of the slope. As we get further along on the corridor, you'll notice that the actual horizon will shift, and the left part of the horizon is much higher than the right side. On the contrary, the angle of the tractor is sloping from the right side to the left side downward. The combined angle actually was getting kind of close to increasing the pucker factor as we were making this part of the widening of the corridor possible. Speeding the video back up to about 4 times the actual speed to get us through a little bit more of the mundane part of mowing the corridor. Finished the mowing that we needed to do for the day. All in all, probably mowed between 4 and 5 acres. We had to go relatively slow since we were kind of wary of the possibility that we may have seen some fawns along the way. Luckily, we did not see any fawns, and most luckily, we didn't run over ones that we did not see and end up with ground venison in the bush hog. We're heading on back up the trail from the creek up to the hayfield. This actually is kind of slow progress because you have a little bit of uncertainty with the rocks on the trail as well as the slope, which is a little over 20 degrees. Luckily, once we get up to the hayfield, we don't have to do any further mowing for the day. The hayfield I leave to my neighbors to cut and bale. That saves us an awful lot of time since the hayfield encounters a little bit less than 10 acres. Getting close to the top of the hill, you'll be seeing the redneck blind coming up on the right side as we get closer to finishing the day and wrapping up this video.